Again, thank you, Ben, for inviting me. I think this is a hugely important conversation to be having at this point, partly because voice control and voice recognition is better than it's ever been before, but also partly because we as humans have started to understand how to use voice control. You know, it's a kind of a matching of habits and behaviors with technology. So this is called a first-person talker, 5 rules for a new voice-led genre. Who the hell am I? I'm Thomas Keane. I am the creative director at Godolphin Games. I should comment, this is me making the sound effects for the game that we're currently working on. But our essential specialism is we're sort of set up in order to essentially explore what we call unlikely gameplay mechanics, right? So mechanics that are essentially exploring a new concept of what a game should be. And I was actually I was speaking at York University recently, and someone put their hand up and said, isn't this just a process of finding out which, choosing your hill to die on, right? And I actually really like that. And I think if we ever do, not work remotely, we might have that above the top of the door of we're the studio that chooses our hill to die on. And our first hill is voice and the first person talker. And it's a beautiful hill, and I'm really glad we're all on that hill together. This is the game that we just released last week on Wednesday. This is Unknown Number, a first person talker suitably. It is a voice-controlled puzzle adventure, a voice-controlled thriller that is told entirely through interactive phone calls. And it's currently out on PC and Steam. And I'll just play this trailer. It might be incredibly loud, so do you have control of the sound? Just that thing of like, oh my goodness. But it might not be, it might be too quiet.
I am in this till the end. So do I open the voicemail?
Up already. We're stuck in the boat at the base of the ridge. We need you to call 01595.
9434
Welcome to Sligoil Security Systems.
Please say the passphrase.
Oil?
Which officer would you like to give an order to?
Officer Walters. Oh my god. I do solemnly pledge to sacrifice all that I am. I can't believe I just said that. Cross on 1. I've got you here, Slego. The crew must be staring straight at me. Oh my god, it changes every time! Ah! I really don't want to sing. Laura had a little lamb. What?
This is a transmission from the Metropolitan Police.
Do I want to get in with the police?
Let's talk about why.
Yeah, which we stole. I can't tell if you're good or bad. Oh, if this is Morse code, blaming hell.
2.5 minutes to go.
I will. How? Oh no, you're gonna die! Oh my gosh, grab the phone!
It's $1 billion. Please say you got it.
You want me involved and then you hang up on me. This is a toxic relationship. You're gonna come back begging for more. I know you are. Yeah. I'll wipe you right out.
So yeah, it's it tells the story of an eco heist. In case you hadn't worked out, they're trying to steal $7 billion from an oil baron, and you get sucked into it by a simple misdial. And it came out on Wednesday, and it's actually been going down as well as we could possibly hope. We're really, really happy with the results. Obviously, it's early days. This would get totally tanked. We'll get a terrible reviews tomorrow. So, but the temporary space is good. And I think what's really nice is we've had some streamers pick us up as well, which shows that there is an interest in voice in game. And look at that title, right? That's not about Unknown Number. That's about this game can hear your voice. Newsflash. Let's talk about it. And so we're getting this thing where people are starting to find this interesting. People are starting to get excited about it, which excites me. What's interesting, though, of course, is most of you are probably going, yeah, but you've been going around, and whenever I speak to press, I'm like, yeah, we're the world's first person talker, and we're like, it's just really sort of hype how we're so pioneering all this sort of stuff. But of course, it's sort of semi-BS, right? Because there have been voice control games for a very long time. This is Seaman, which is in one way, I would like to say the origin story of this wonderful segment we're in, which is obviously on the Dreamcast circa 2000. And there's been others, there's been Lifeline, there's been all sorts of things. But what's amazing is it hasn't actually established itself yet, right? So I've got a couple of quotes from industry people, from not just industry people, but publishers, people who are the gatekeepers to us developers connecting with consumers. And as far as the industry is concerned, this is the first voice control game. It's like they've never even heard of it, right? This is a fairly major publisher, actually. And they said, it's not so much that the game has a problem or an issue, as much as it's something different and hard to gauge, therefore, what a potential response would be. This is a nice measured way of putting it. Another way of putting it is, we tried out your demo and weirdly enjoyed it. We didn't think we would. And it's like this thing of, there's a low expectation of what on earth a voice control game is going to be. You know, people just, it's not on their radar. So as far as we're at, it might as well be the first, right? And actually anyone making a game in here needs to think about the game you're making as the very first voice control game, because that's the kind of space we're in. We need to be fighting to actually get that position in the market. And so, yeah, so Unknown Number, as hopefully other people making games in here are doing, is we need to be kickstarting that process, essentially trying to show game makers and audiences that voice control games can be fun. They can be interesting, because ultimately ambition is this, right? Grand Theft Auto, a first-person talker. I don't know what that would look like, but I really want to see what it would look like. You know, it's something that actually there's no reason that Assassin's Creed shouldn't have voice integrated. There's no reason that Rockstar shouldn't be having a way to interact with its NPCs. And so we have to be thinking like that. And so yes, these are the 5 rules for basically their learnings as to what terrible mistakes I made during the process of Unknown Number that I really urge you not to make in your game making processes, because it has been a narrative of ups and downs, many failures and many learnings, but thank God it's out. And it starts all the way back here. I actually went, you know what, a bit like Ben, I'm going to do this game making thing. I've been involved in lots of different game making projects, but I'm like, no, I'm going to be this director of a game. I'm going to, you know, put my heart on the line and make something I love. And I did this thing with this great artist called Kate Featherstone, and I was really hyped. And then Kate Featherstone did this thing where they left the company and went to America. And so this whole thing I got really excited about suddenly just crumbled, right? I'd lost the artist in this art-driven game. I was in trouble. So I was thinking to myself, I've set myself up, I've got myself all built up. I want to make a game, but I can't draw. What game shall I make? Well, what if I make a game without art? That's a good idea. I'll make a game without art. And I was going, well, what formats don't have art? What formats, what ways of interacting with machines don't have art? And I thought, oh, telephone calls. So this idea, the early birth of Unknown Number was the idea of a game played through telephone calls. And yes, I mean real telephone calls. It was going to call your real phone in real time while you're on the toilet, while you're at work, doing whatever, you know, basically interrupting you down your actual telephone. And it was going to be, we did it using Twilio, which of course is, you know, the platform that all the banks use and every major company uses, down the phone lines of automating phone calls, getting you to say, you know, please say your passcode or whatever it is, and you say it, and then you can't tell if it's heard you, and it's a very long process. But we thought that'd be really fun to use in a game. And we also thought, well, it's going to be an audio game, so let's make it as rich as is humanly possible. And I showed you that picture earlier of me making the buzzing noise for the halogen lights, right? And this is, you know, climbing ladders and digging holes and smashing glass cabinets and all that sort of stuff. We're like, this needs to be a brilliant audio game. Let's make the audio rich and characterful and like it's thing in itself. And we actually made it. We made the whole damn game. We're fools. We should not have done this. This is a very bad game. We made the game as telephone calls, and we play tested it with people. And we, of course, it was done over Zoom because it was the pandemic, and we got lots of people playing it, and we faced a whole lot of issues. And this was our major kind of failed start on this process. Same story, same kind of comment, premise, similar puzzles, all that sort of stuff. But it didn't work for a number of reasons. One is, I mean, we really should have had a business person on this. This was foolish. Phone bills. It cost us every single second that someone was actually calling us. It was like we were paying them to play the game. It was, I don't know. Yeah. The other thing is that anyone who knows who has called a bank and spoken down the phone and tried to speak to them with their voice, it sucks. Voice recognition sucks down the phone line. I actually really apologize if anyone works at Twilio. It's a great service, and thank you for letting us use it. But the most important one for my purposes is audio, the last one, which is audio only experiences struggle to hold attention, right? So I came across this pretty tough thing, right? And I'm going to caveat this because I know there are audio only game makers in the audience. But in what I found is in a PC gaming environment, in a gaming environment, basically you can only choose one hill to die on, right? And voice control is already a hill to die on. It's already something that people just can't get their head around, and you really need to work hard to onboard them in that kind of PC gaming context. So actually, don't then throw in this whole other thing where you're essentially taking away the visuals, taking away the crutch, taking away the fundamental thing that a lot of people use as a way to know whether they're having fun, as a way to know whether they're engaged, as a way to know whether it's something they even want to buy in the first place. And so I've started with this assumption that voice control games work well as audio only games. This is not true in the context that I'm operating in, right? Actually, the reality that I found was if you don't have strong visuals, if you don't have visuals that at least match up to and dynamically react to what players are doing, then players are going to struggle to engage. And that was the first big learning I had. But we knew we had something really cool, because just about this time where I was like, you know what, I'm going to throw this project in. This is a rubbish project and I'm done. Someone sent me this from Jacksepticeye, right? Jacksepticeye, one of the biggest YouTubers in the world, randomly in a video went, hey, you know what would be a really cool idea for a game? Somebody should call you and you should talk back to them using sort of Siri or Alexa kind of thing. And this was actually like the perfect silver bullet at the perfect moment for us, was we went, okay, we're onto something. We might actually get people liking this. We might get people streaming it. We just haven't got the ingredients correct at this point. And so we went away and we rebuilt this as a PC game, right? We added these FMV backgrounds because we love her story. It's a fantastic game. We added this character who reacts and engages with all the different things you do. He's called Vox. He's kind of our take on the Microsoft Clippy kind of paradigm, but he's far more useless than Microsoft Clippy, if you can even imagine that. And we also did this thing, which I think is one of the coolest things in the game, is we thought, well, let's just throw away realism, like screw realism. It's a game, it's fun, it's silly. And we basically mutated the phone device to magically, dynamically respond to the puzzles and the context, and basically just make this a whirlwind of visuals. And I actually had a reviewer be like, I was like, oh, how did you find the way it looked? And they're like, if anything, it's pretty OTT in the way it presents. It's got all these different things going on. And so I went maybe from a very minimal, no visual game to a highly all singing, bells ringing all the time kind of art experiment. And so, yeah, people are going to love this now, right? People are going to love this. I played it, I gave it to people going, this is going to be good. It's got the visuals, it's got the thing, the puzzle's still cool. Will you tell me when I've only got 5 minutes left, by the way, Ben? People are going to love it. It's going to be really cool. And I present it in front of them, normal players who play PC games, you know, exactly the kind of game I want them to like. And I get this response. Like, what? How do I play this game? What am I doing? Like, what do you want me to say? How do you want me to behave? And I think Ben touched on this already, right? A fun fact that you have to lean into and tackle in some way. And, you know, we have a bunch of strategies for doing it, but they're far from perfect. And this is one of the things we really have to dig into, is that voice control games fundamentally give players stage fright, right? That moment where you go, over to you, say something, they go, I don't think I will actually. I don't think I'll say anything. And so another publisher, we got a lot of no's from publishers. Another publisher, this is great. As I am rather shy, the idea of having to voice into the computer to play the game was very intimidating and more nightmarish than anything. You know, I mean, some games might want to be nightmarish. That might be the emotion they want to elicit, but it actually wasn't the emotion that was on the design sheet for unknown number of first-person talker. So we had a serious issue. We were giving people a nightmarish game. And so we realized that one of our fundamental assumptions, and I know this is my personal opinion, right? One of our assumptions is that people will enjoy the freedom of being able to say everything, right? Because the dream of voice at this point is, you just press beep and what do you want to say? I actually think we're so far away from that right now. I think people are just not in that space. I think that actually we're not going, let's help people enjoy the freedom of being able to say anything. We're actually in the space of, let's help people get even comfortable. Let's help people even feel okay and comfortable with interfacing with a voice control game. And what our solution, and it's one solution, was we went, let's actually explicitly tell players what they need to say and when they need to say it. Let's screw the freedom. Like let's just be like, this thing you say it now, cool, play the game, fantastic, we're having fun. And just to give you an example, right? This is a puzzle in the game where you have to order security guards around a vault, so around a map, and you have to say, attention Officer Keane, move over here, and all this sort of stuff. The first draft, the first instruction was this, right? The game says to you, to assign an officer to a new location, to move them around, say, attention Officer Keane, report to the smoking room, right? That was the first intention. And we thought, this is super cool because players will have to say a full phrase. And this is voice. That'd be really fun if they say a full phrase. They're going to enjoy voicing. They're going to enjoy saying things. What we actually found was the issue with this was that players had to say a full phrase, and they just absolutely just could not do this. They could not do this. And the worst thing about it was we were asking them to do it at the precise time we were asking them to solve a puzzle, right? We were saying, beep, say a full phrase, and they're going, oh, I can't even solve the puzzle right now. So we were asking them to do it at the same time they were thinking. And this was like massive overload, right? So we reformulated it. And some of you machine learning people and natural language processing people will be like, ah. But what we did was, the question now is, hey player, which officer would you like to give an order to? Player says, Officer Keane. Hey player, which location should Officer Keane report to? Player says, the smoking room. Now this is good. This is good. People can do this. People like it even. Good things. Players only have a couple of words to say. They feel good about that. They know what they're saying. And we're telling players what they need to say. And we're telling them what they need to say at the moment they need to say it, right? We're saying, which officer? Say it now. Which location? Say it now. And it enables them to actually focus on solving the puzzles rather than stressing on a technical level, on a mechanical level, are they even going to get through this interaction? So this for us was a good solution, and it will change, right? This is the state of play now. This is how people react with games now. As they get more and more literate within voice, it will change. But as our current space, I think this is the kind of mindset we need to be adopting. And it actually informed the way that we handled hints in the game, right? So originally, and we still do, we have this hint system, a static hint system. You go into the hints and you say, hey, Mr. AI, tell me how to play noughts and crosses on this phone, because that's one of the puzzles. And they say something like, oh, cross on 9 is always a great place to start. That's okay. But people don't actually find that useful. What they find really useful is when they're playing noughts and crosses, you have a hint which pops up and says, to play, say cross on insert number. So you say what to say at the moment you need to say it. And this gives people this sense of a nice walled garden where they feel comfortable, right? Where they feel they can actually fundamentally engage with the game and not drop off. But are we having fun yet? No, we're not really having fun. We're comfortable, and that's a problem. It's a game. It's not just comfortable. It has to be fun. Okay. And so I'll speed up here. But basically, we had a big assumption that actually in a voice controlled game, you should use voice to do pretty much everything. And this is a very common assumption. This was a reviewer who had a great idea, fantastic idea. Hey, could you maybe put voice recognition on the dialing? So I can go 0712, like, no, that's a terrible idea. It's much better to use buttons. But it's a very easy mistake to make. This is Lifeline, right? Lifeline is an archetypal, brilliant game. And you have combat by saying, shoot the front limb, shoot the hind limb, shoot the body, shoot the mouth, all that sort of stuff. It's a cool game. The problem is most of its recognition today on YouTube is actually the pure frustration, right, of actually having to fight in that way, the pure frustration of having to say those things, because I just want to say, shoot the damn thing, kill the thing. That's the way you want to interact with it. And so our learning was only use voice when it actively makes the interaction more fun. Only use voice when it actively makes the interaction more fun, because buttons often are better than voice. Often they're better. Do not forget buttons. Voice is still only good in certain places. And to give you an example, we had a Morse code puzzle. Yes, we were morons. The first version of this was speaking ... Don't do that. Press the buttons. It's a button system. Just go with that. 4, 5 isn't that important, so we can just cut it off. 4, voice controlled games is about the words you say. This is the assumption that everyone has, right? Everyone says that basically voice controlled games are about almost the speech to text. What are you going to say? And actually our thing is like, well, actually, don't limit yourself as creators here. Don't limit yourself. Think about the full spectrum of what you can do with your mouth. So we have a puzzle where you do singing, we have a puzzle where you do whispering, we have a puzzle where you do shouting. And these are actually, really fun because they keep the player on their toes. And we tried all these things. Like we even tried a puzzle where you blow, but we couldn't make it fun, so we killed it. But I'm really glad we tried it. I'm really glad we tried it. And all these things ended up in a really great place. This is the person who was absolutely terrified, who said it's nightmarish, but actually they were happy with the experience. They went from a nightmarish place to a happy place. They said, I had to remind myself that no one would be listening when I tried it out. And so I was curious to give it a go. And once I got in, I was surprised to be enjoying it and happy that the scary part of voicing wasn't actually an issue in the end. And I do genuinely believe that it was through all these processes of basically all these tweaks that got us to a point where actually they were having a sick time. This is the final one, but it's self-explanatory. Please put a microphone test in there. Oh my goodness, please put a microphone test in there. These are people criticizing the game. They were going, your voice recognition is rubbish. Their mics weren't connected to their freaking machine. So, so just add a voice microphone test, because it will actually save you a lot of issues, because players blame you. They will never blame themselves. They will blame you. So yeah, do that. And so this are my 5 learnings. These, rather, are my 5 learnings. Strong visuals are essential. Tell the player what to say, when they need to say it. Only use voice when it actually makes the interaction more fun. Please open your mind to not just thinking in terms of words and what you say, but also including how you say it. And finally, just put a microphone test in, because it really does make a difference. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Tom. That was fantastic. Really pleased you can join us. So we've got a bit of time for Q&A, if there are any questions from the audience here. If not, I'm going to pose you a really difficult question.
Please do, please
but,
do.
Sorry, it was just a sort of a query, really. Is just, did you ever used to play sort of old-fashioned ARGs, sort of games where you do use phones, but you've got a team of people in the background running the game, so it's not as automated? But I wonder whether you've played those in the past yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, because my background, it actually is ARGs or ARGs. Yeah, so I actually did a whole load of, a number of years ago, my first interactive experiences were a series of ARGs for Xbox as marketing experiences. So I did one for Halo, and I did one for Sunset Overdrive, and also Tomb Raider, and they were tremendously interesting, and actually part of this whole voice journey for me, and the escape ripcord I pulled when I lost my damn artist was, oh, well, those games are a bit more, less visual and more, multi-platform and all that sort of stuff. But I was going, well, how can I reinvent this for a contemporary age? Because there's something about ARGs that do feel pretty retro, actually, even though I very much love them. And I think the voice is one of those ways to actually reinvigorate the ARG. But yeah, I do actually see this as an ARG game, to the point where actually we don't have an in-game notepad on purpose, even though every single reviewer has said, why isn't there an in-game notepad? And the reason is because I actually want to make sure you're noting it down in real life, using your actual hand and feeling like it's some sort of breaking of the fourth wall. And there are multiple points in the game, no spoilers, that actively force you to break that fourth wall. There's actually a real world browser in the game, so you can search the real internet. So yeah.
Anyone else? Yes.
Hi. How do you get around the issue of different accents or speech impediments or certain disabilities that could make it more difficult?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question. I think accessibility is one of the key questions around this. So accents are easy one in one way, because actually the software is fairly versatile. The plugins are kind of built around different accents. I think accessibility in a more kind of like disability or ability realm is more complex. It's not perfect, right? It's not perfect. I think we've got a game where you have to use your voice, and you have to use your voice in quite a wide variety of ways to play it, and that of course excludes people. But to assuage my guilt and also, but I mean, quite seriously, it also opens the doors to a whole lot of people who are currently excluded from gaming. If you speak to Special Effect, the charity who deal with disability in games and create bespoke controlling mechanics to actually be able to access games, that their number one, they say the number one barrier is the dexterity to use a keyboard or a controller. And that's gone. Like we've opened those doors to anyone who's excluded in that sense. So it's a swings and roundabouts thing. We've definitely closed the door to a number of people, but I think in the sum total of things, we've actually opened the door to probably a much larger number of people.
Yes.
Hi, Thomas. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, you know, we're doing some stuff as well. So one of the issues that we found is you ask a player a question, you give it a reasonable pause to see if they're going to say something, and then you kind of prompt them because they're not saying anything, but you both talk at the same time, or somebody tries to answer a question before you've stopped finishing. So it's like, how do you get over the problem that people sort of talk over the computer?
I'm so glad you asked that, because that was actually a sixth point, but I cut it out because because of the time.
Okay.
Let me just show you this, right? This thing here. Okay, this is a timer. So in the phone call version of the game, there was none of this stuff. It just went, hey, like, did you get the number? Silence. Went, yes, and then but it'd be too late because the microphone wasn't listening anymore.
Yeah.
So our solution actually is to lean into gaminess, lean into actually the kind of things that enable players to know explicitly when to speak. And so we implemented this timer system, which at the beginning goes, bloop, and it's like you can see the microphone working, and players know, and they can see how much time they've got, and then bloop, and they know when their window of interaction is. So a obvious window of interaction with beeps either side is essential, or, as Ben has implemented, a push to talk button is essential. If you don't have those two crutches, players really struggle to know when to speak.
That's very good advice. Thanks.
Hi. So I imagine the entire experience was you tested it with adults. So how did, I don't know, kids or?
So I thought you said dogs. I'm like,
adults.
No, we didn't.
I'm sorry. It's the accent. No, the accent problem. Did you try it out like with young kids, with the teenagers? I mean, like the experience probably changes if it's like someone who's 40 or 11 or 6.
So yeah, we tested with adults in the development process. However, I have tested with a huge amount of kids in the last week because I was at EGX for the 4 days. And I don't know who's been to EGX recently. It's a lot of kids there. And actually it was kids coming in and doing it. And actually they were totally fine. What we actually had is a lot of them being creeped out by the intensity of the experience. So in particular, it's very intense audio, and obviously it's a thriller scenario. And so we had like a couple of kids being like, I actually don't like this. But it wasn't a technical issue. In general, what we suffered at EGX was people speaking too quietly. And so and actually not because it was background noise, like we had a directional mic and it wasn't an issue of like too quiet versus the background noise. It's just that people's tendency is actually go, I am in this till the end, because they're so embarrassed. They're so embarrassed. It's so embarrassing to speak. It's embarrassing for me to speak. Like, and actually that's the thing of like, I imagine that's always gonna be something we deal with, but equally, I think over time, we're gonna get more relaxed and less embarrassed about speaking to machines. And that will just be a good thing. Maybe.